folks. Welcome to Project Gamma. At Project Gamma, we have smart conversations with smart people across entrepreneurship, technology, and cybersecurity. My name is Warner Moore. I'm a technologist and security leader who helped build multiple business-to-business software as a service companies across industries. And I'm passionate about modern cybersecurity practices. I'm also the founder of Gamma Force. At Gamma Force, we help tech and health tech companies with cybersecurity strategy by acting as their fractional security organization. Orlie Benjamin has an educational background in law, and she pivoted that into business. Her career was multifaceted across business strategy, customer experience, and marketing. After a meaningful career, Orlie decided to table flip and founded Lasoh, and she's working to create more entrepreneurs. Welcome, Orlie. Thanks for being here.
Warner, thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with your origin story. You started on a path, a pretty impressive one at that, becoming a lawyer. You're at JD. You decided to do it differently, going into business. Share more about that. How do you choose the path you're on?
I would say I started on the path my parents told me to go down, which, as the child of two immigrants who value education, the answer always was be a doctor or a lawyer. Of course, my brother is a doctor and my dad is one too. So I don't like blood. And I was like, well, maybe this whole lawyer thing will work out. I got into law school, went through the whole program, passed the bar. But while I was in school, I started to recognize that I had interest in some of the business law classes specifically. And that's when I explored adding an MBA to the law degree. They let you do it for like one more year and they basically let you in for free. So it felt like a no risk situation where I could maybe figure out how to kick the can down the road on my career and figure out an exit strategy for something I found to be quite boring while I was doing it.
Nice. Well, one thing we often glamorize is the young dropout founder. What's understated in entrepreneurship is those who are more commonly successful have had a career, built experience, learned an industry. You've had some big jobs in your career. How'd that translate to the company you founded?
I think that my career has been super nonlinear, a bit jagged. I've worked in a variety of industries and in a variety of functional areas. I worked at American Airlines in pricing strategy, and then I worked in digital marketing at Victoria's Secret, and then I worked at strategy and product design at NetJet. So like none of those functional areas are the same. And then none of those industries are the same. And then I went on and moved to CPG and eventually worked as head of marketing at a California-based startup. Throughout all these really disparate experiences, I saw a common thread, which was my interest in people. And fundamentally, I think really great businesses are businesses that work backwards from customer pain and solve solutions for people. Whether it's pricing strategy, which is really around changing behavior based off of pricing, or marketing, which is really around influencing behavior to drive more revenue, or even customer experience strategy, which is around understanding friction and pain points and solving them. All of those things really were all about people at the end of the day that engage with the business and value to people. When I went to Scott's, which is the CPG company I was referencing, I worked in the innovation group and I had the opportunity to build from 0 to 1. That was the first time I was exposed to entrepreneurship in a corporate setting because I was given the opportunity to build something from scratch. And I was like way too into it, right? I'd always been a part of a much bigger ship, steering the bigger ship, but there were a lot of us on the ship and the ship was big. Having the opportunity to be given complete ownership over building something really unlocked something in me that I didn't know existed. And then after that, I was put in the corporate venture capital group and I got really jealous of founders and I realized I was on the wrong side of the table. So that's when I actually decided, okay, I'm leaving corporate America. I'm going to go pursue learning about entrepreneurship. I was in my sort of late to mid 30s at that point, and I had never even been exposed to it until a corporate environment put me in touch with it. Because my whole life, I've got this sort of risk averse parents that are all about doctors and lawyers. You never go look at something high risk like entrepreneurship and betting on yourself. That just seems entirely radical. So it was completely off my radar, but I eventually meandered my way into it. And I feel like I'm really on my path now.
I didn't know that about your background, the corporate entrepreneurship, I believe. I'm curious, I have some founder friends and this isn't too unusual. Did your parents go so far as that they give you a difficult time because they can't relate to the entrepreneurship path you took? Or
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like they thought I was crazy. They still worry about me. One of the first things I did, the first business I built outside of that corporate setting was I bought some land near a state park here in Ohio.
Hmm.
I bought a lot of land because I started to see trends that this sort of drive to destination vacation rental business industry was booming. It all happened when my favorite place sold out in 30 minutes for a whole year. And I'm like, okay, there's a demand here. So they thought I was nuts. I refinanced my house, bought 78 acres of land, and built a custom built vacation rental business. The first year, we netted six figures. I couldn't believe how well it did. And that's
Hmm.
actually how I discovered this industry that I'm now working in, which is vacation rental management as a professional industry. I didn't know that existed, but it all just started with a sort of an identification of demand because of something selling out really quickly, an actual interest in it as a customer, and the idea of wanting to build something. So they literally were terrified the entire time for
Hmm.
me. They told me I shouldn't do it. I'm being too risky.
Yeah, it's definitely not the easy path, but I think for some folks, it's certainly the right path. One thing I like about your approach, and you've mentioned this, being customer centric, and you also shared that part of founding Lasso, you stumbled into a problem, essentially the first business you founded with your rental properties. So talk more about being customer centric, identifying the problem and how you solved and found the problem in the market.
My whole career working in commercial functions, you're always trained to think customer first. It's literally like a slogan in your KPIs on an annual basis, customer first, right? Like it's how you're trained to think. And so what was sort of ingrained in me from my professional environment was something I always naturally would bring into any scenario. But then I layered onto that my own personal experience of being the customer as someone who rents vacation rentals all the time. I love to travel. Like, some of the places I've worked are, American Airlines and NetJets. It's all about travel. But then also I got to flip the script and I actually got to understand what it's like to be an operator of a place where people travel to. And so by understanding the stakeholder scenarios of both guest and host, it actually helped me understand pain points in that stakeholder relationship that I could imagine solutions to because of the work experience I had had and seeing how other industries have playbooks because they're more established later life stage industries, whether it's around sort of experience strategy or around nurture marketing and relationship management. Those are things that other industries have solved, but this industry that's younger because it's a newer industry hadn't really unlocked yet. And so identifying the pain, imagining a solution, feeling it personally from multiple angles, those were all part of the problem identification process.
Well, one thing that's really cool about what you're working on with Lasso, I like to travel a lot, and it's not unusual for me to rent from people, right? And so I rent cars from people at times, and drives me nuts that I can't communicate with these folks. On one platform, I literally have to book the thing to send someone a message, and I need to know what I'm booking because I need specific tires for weather, etc. So I they intentionally make it difficult to do the thing that I need to do because they're trying to control the customer relationship. Drives me nuts. So with Lasso, you're disintermediating. You're empowering people to become entrepreneurs. Talk more about your mission and why disintermediation. What are your thoughts there?
So what Lasso does is it essentially enables professional operators of vacation rental businesses to actually have a direct relationship with their guests that come in from booking platforms and turn essentially channels that are distribution channels into lead generation for then people that can become their customers going forward. Any marketplace is in the business of map making, whether it's Amazon or Etsy or Airbnb, right? They have a two-sided marketplace and the way they make money is off of revenue coming in from both sides. What I don't love about a two-sided marketplace as someone who been trained as a direct to consumer minded person is that if you don't know your customers, how do you even know if your business is doing the right thing? Back to the customer first approach. One of the things that I initially had a very negative reaction to when building my vacation rental business was this idea of not having a direct relationship with my customers, not understanding what's working, what's not working, what do you like, you know, constant feedback loop. I think that continuous improvement comes from continuous feedback. And so one of the things that I sought to solve was the ability to essentially remove Airbnb out of the equation once that guest comes in and turn that guest into someone who is loyal to the brand of the vacation rental business, not loyal to Airbnb. When you think about it, a lot of people use Airbnb like a noun, an adjective, a verb. I stayed at an Airbnb. Oh, we went to an Airbnb. But Airbnb is actually like a brand. But when a brand gets so injected into vocabulary that you don't say things like, I went and stayed at a rental home or I went and stayed at a vacation home, Airbnb has done such a good job of being the whole thing that these operators behind the scenes that are actually either owning the asset or operating the asset literally become invisible. And I think that a really good business is sticky and has the ability to have repeat customers because repeat customers are an annuity, right? It's a recurring revenue stream. Every business loves recurring revenue. So from my perspective, removing Airbnb from the equation by establishing a relationship with customers and then nurturing that relationship to drive repeat bookings as well as maximize revenue as part of the overall stay experience is exactly what Lasoh does. This is like a tried and true playbook that any direct-to-consumer business does, because the way you make money is how many customers do you have, how much do they spend each transaction, how many transactions are there, right? But if Airbnb doesn't let you have the repeat transaction and you can't really communicate with them to increase their spend by offering them upsells or helping them extend their stay, all you have is transactions. And there is nothing recurring about transactions that come in off a distribution channel, right? So for me, that was really the business model. And then also just from like a personal perspective, I really have found so much joy in the process of being an entrepreneur. And I know that the people that are managing these vacation rental businesses are actually most of the time small to medium-sized businesses that have been essentially intermediated by a large company, and they don't have the ability to control their book of business. And so I feel like I'm enabling entrepreneurship for them by enabling them to have a more sustainable business model, by being better at marketing, by giving them tools that, you know, really are much more sophisticated at like a more like enterprise level, but bringing those playbooks to the SMB space so that they can take action on things that otherwise they may not have training to do.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Empowering folks. I travel a fair amount and frequently go back to the same places. I like to go to Salt Lake, and I've been trying to build relationships with people renting properties there because I don't want to own there. And it's been, well, nothing stuck consistently. I find it a bit ridiculous because I know if I were in that position, I'd be like, yes, please keep on coming back. Make it easy. Just show up every year. I think a lot of these platforms just make some people not even think about the business or the customer relationship and just assume that distribution will always be there, at least if it's in a hot enough market. Interesting thoughts. I think it's really neat how you are empowering people to truly be entrepreneurs, which isn't always the case when it comes to a rental property.
It's definitely something that keeps me motivated because I am building a business that aligns to my personal values and to the things I'm passionate about, and blending everything together in that way makes working really fun because it doesn't feel like work. I feel like I'm doing something I love and I have passion about, which makes it a lot easier to work really hard for a long amount of time every day because it's fun. If I did something I didn't like, for example, if I was a municipal practicing attorney right now, I would probably be very grumpy, feel like every hour of work was onerous, unless I found some part of law that, you know, I loved. But usually you specialize pretty early and it's hard to get out of the specialization that you find. So I think for me, this was the right path.
Yeah. Vision, impact, values. Those are things I think about frequently. We were talking earlier, and you shared that you've recently gotten Lasso from MVP to 1.0. What was that journey like? How did you get there?
Everything is a team effort. I mean, I obviously have a vision for the business based off of my experience in prior corporate environments, and I can see how those playbooks translate to this sort of underserved industry. But it's absolutely a triangulation of a lot of moving parts. I would say primarily, first of all, having a really good team that can take an idea, break it down into something implementable, make sure the priorities are okay, what's MVP and what do we do later, and then build. So having a great team for building, I'm a non-technical founder, right? So I have an engineering team that is absolutely not a delivery team. They are a strategic partnership in part of the process for how do we make this thing happen, and then we deliver. But delivery comes last, right? The building process, the shaping process is the most important thing because translating idea to buildability is very key. The second thing that I think is really important is not just the ability to build, but building the right thing. And that's where leaning on customers is super important. We started our business with me as the first customer. But, I think there's this concept of me marketing, right? Like if I only imagine my problem, not the industry's problem, we could build a really big solution to the wrong problem. What was very critical in ensuring that what we were building accomplished solving other people's problems was actually working with other people and working with early users. We called them design partners because they helped us design the product. And it was a partnership. It wasn't just being a customer where the expectation is I'm serviced, this is the transaction, but there was really a partnership in terms of they would identify pain points and then we would commit to solving them with some level of, is this actually a problem that other people have, which involves a broader engagement with the industry, doing lots of research, lots of customer discovery. And so going from something kind of ugly and embarrassing of an MVP to continuing to buttress the thing and make sure it was moving in a direction that there was customer demand for was really the second thing that was really important. And then I'd say finally, just having some money to do all that. I was very fortunate to get grants and I bootstrapped, pay other folks that were high quality and engage other folks to get help because there was a little bit of money to take the idea to a place of being actionable. So those three things.
That's such a knowledge bomb right there. For a lot of technical founders, an engineer, a technologist, it's easy for somebody to think, oh, I could just build this. And especially if they're solving a problem they have. And what you said there is you not only solved a problem you had, which isn't necessarily bad, but you didn't assume your problem was the market problem. So we're actually solving a problem for the market and built a business around that. And so some folks are lucky to ever learn that lesson, and many it takes years. It takes years. I'm curious, do you have co-founders?
Just me.
I commonly have conversations with non-technical founders who are trying to navigate the creating a product when they are not technical. How do you navigate that? It sounds like you figured it out really well.
Slow and sloppy at the beginning. At the beginning, I had a co-founder for 3 weeks. That was clearly just a mismatch in terms of skill set and life experience. And that was, so we sort of unwound that very quickly. Then I hired someone who on paper looked really legitimate. And when actions and words didn't line up consistently for a while, and I had spent about 50 grand of my own money, a lot of people probably would have quit at that point because I was also not really fully working. I was doing some consulting, like I was kind of moving towards the direction of being all in. So the third time was a charm. And I leaned on my network to find what is now one of the engineers at the company. And he and I just worked really closely together on building something in collaboration with customers and doing a little bit of reverse engineering in terms of like looking at the marketplace. Where do we want to play? Where do we not want to play? And so the ability for me to kind of bring in a level of industry knowledge and sort of customer centricity, and for him to bring in his building capabilities and this ability to mesh those two things together were really important. I also was able to find a really good product designer. And so it was very early on a product designer, a full stack engineer, and someone who really helped sort of project manage some things. And as we started to get more customer traction, I was able to dig up some more grant money for us by doing, administrative things like ex-lawyers do and applying to things, and got us more money. And we actually started moving faster. And then he brought on his partner, and now we had 2 engineers. And then now we're at 3 engineers, and I have a fractional product leader. So it's been organic and slow, and it's been bumpy in terms of finding the right talent. And that's like why I said early on, I started with the right team, because ideas are cheap and everybody has them. But if you can't bring your ideas to life and you can't execute them, it doesn't matter. And there's so much I can't do. I have plenty of skills, but there's also plenty of things I can't do. And so like really being aware of like, where do I need to build capabilities around my skills so that we have a full stack team as a business is like absolutely one of the most fundamental things in my job.
A strong team is a luxury. Back when I was building health tech companies, something we said all the time is that people were our competitive advantage, and they were. And I still look at it like that to this day. And I think companies, especially right now, there's always ebb and flow in job markets. But when companies who want to hire the best, take care of their folks, treat them well, that's the way to not only build a good company, but a sustainable company. Being less transactional, like you are in your business, you're helping them be less transactional with their stakeholders, their customers.
I would say one really important part of the culture that I care about at Lasso, it's almost like everything I didn't like about corporate, I flipped the script on in this environment. So I'm like absurdly transparent. Financials are shared. If people feel like it's too risky, they have no surprises. Everyone knows how long we have money for. Everyone is aware of what ride we're on. Because I think people should know and they should make choices, right? Like there's no bait and switch. I'm also very much someone who gives trust first. And then if it gets whittled away, then through actions, not words, like actions. You have to follow what people do, not what they say, right? So if trust is taken away, then I will move very quickly because the red flags are there. I'm willing to also break relationships quickly if they're not working. This is not corporate America. We don't have the luxury of PIPs and 90-day plans. The runway we have is the lifeline of everyone else making money. And so like, it's about what's best for the group. It's very utilitarian in that way. But also just like making sure the only thing I ever push people on is pushing me. If people are like not being opinionated enough or not pushing back on me enough, like I always try, because I'm like someone who has a point of view. And whenever you're in a role of leadership, without intending to carry a little bit more weight in the room, because people may not feel as comfortable to push back. It's the number one thing I really care about is like, if you feel a different way, because I like love to debate, like I went to law school, like I don't view conflict as being at all an issue. I love conflict. Conflict is how I always say like diamonds are made under pressure, like push back, give me your point of view. You know things I don't know. So that's like the only thing I really probably give people a hard time about is if they're being too quiet. And I feel like they're not pushing enough on how we approach problem solving. So I think those are really, for me, culturally really important.
We're always learning, all of us, in all roles, places in life, and the life journey. And if we're not getting feedback loops, that's a challenge. Throughout my career, often been the person who provides candid feedback to those who don't get it. And that hasn't always been good for me. But
what you say and how you say it, right? Those two things can be different.
Well, that is true. But often people say they want it, but they don't necessarily want it. But I did it anyway because it's a gift, right? So like it or not, that often helped me identify where best to spend my time as well. But I thank you for your time today, Orlie. And fantastic conversation, plenty of insight that I'm sure folks will value. Do you have any closing thoughts, books, anything more you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would just say the one thing I'm focusing on right now is the scarce resource I have is time, right? So I really am thinking about how do we as a team have the right capabilities across everyone? And then how can I really remove myself from things that someone else could do so that I only focus on things that I can do? And I'm really realizing my job is like a lot about facilitating momentum and inspiring and creating safety for others so that we work as a team. Like in a lot of ways, like the tribal aspect of the business is super important. And so I really shifted a lot of what I'm learning. Well, first of all, I had to learn how to be kind of okay at product strategy, which I'd listened to a lot of Lenny's, and thank you, Lenny, for all of that. But I've moved away from some of that stuff now because I've got someone who knows how to do that. And so really a lot of what I'm doing is focusing on human behavior and how to get the best team. So there's a couple books on my nightstand that I'm focusing on, but that's just something I'm focusing on. And if I can ask the group if they ever add comments, like what is everybody else reading is what I'd want to know, right? Like what are the best practices and the things that they see are winning and what's everyone reading to do that? Because that's what I'm trying to learn right now.
A book I read recently, only past couple years, it's kind of ridiculous because it's a quintessential management book. High Performance Management. Andy Grove, I believe, wrote it.
Yeah, I have that one.
Really, really good. Have you read
Ex-CEO
it?
of, I'm in the middle of it. He's the ex-CEO of Intel, right?
Yep, founder too. Instantly became on my top list of management books. It's a little less squishy. It's not organizational psychology, but it's interesting. I went back and double checked 360-degree reviews. He
Did
created.
that come from that? I actually am a
Yeah.
huge fan of 360 reviews.
I didn't believe it. I'm like, really? I know the books from the 90s, but really? And he invented it. It's a really good book. I like that. But if you've looked into it, Adam Grant, organizational psychologist, one of my favorite authors, and really, really good content on that subject. If people have books they want to recommend to you, Orly, how should they reach out?
Well, I'm sure there'll be some comments here that I could follow up on. And my email is my name at lasso.io. So Orly at lasso.io. And my full name is my LinkedIn profile. So yeah, if anyone finds anything that we're talking about interesting and wants to engage, reach out via LinkedIn or email. And I would love to, hear what other people are thinking. So you.
That's generous of you, Orly. Thanks again for being here, and thank you all for listening to Project Gamma, presented by GammaForce.io. If you've enjoyed this podcast, check us out on your favorite podcast platform to catch future episodes.